Welcome back to the For All the Saints podcast, and I'm absolutely delighted, ecstatic, you could say, to have with me Jay Osmond today. Jay, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ben?
I'm great. This is so exciting for me. I've been excited for a long time for this. I told you before that seeing the Osmonds, you and your brothers, was either my first or my second ever concert. So I'm a fan, and I'm very excited to speak to you
Well,
today.
thank you. When was that?
That
When
was
was
in 2012, and it was on the Can't Get There Without You album tour in Darlington. if you remember Darlington,
I remember that tour.
it's a very forgettable place, Darlington. Sorry to anyone listening from Darlington.
No, all of the UK. I mean, well, we've been very blessed as a family to travel around the world, and there's so many wonderful places and people all over the world, in the Philippines, in the UK, in the United States, everywhere, Australia, New Zealand, and it's wonderful to see it. It just does my heart good because you could go anywhere you want and go to church, and you feel like you're at home. I mean, the gospel is the gospel, and the church is this church, and it's just wonderful. And the people are so warm and welcoming, and all over the world. But they're all the same. We all have the same desires, the same goals, the same beliefs, and the church is really amazing because you have it's like you all have something in common with each other wherever you go in the world. And it has been very comforting to me as we've traveled to know that the church is worldwide, and I love it.
Well, we're particularly in the UK fond of you because, well, you premiered your musical, the Osmonds musical, in the UK, in Leicester, where I was living at the time. And, of course, you play such a rich part of our church history. And we're going to delve into some of that in a bit because I wonder if people around the world, members of the church around the world, really know the extent to what your influence really was on the growth of the church in the UK. And so we'll delve into that a bit later. But I first need to ask you, Jay, you started performing at 2 years old. Am I correct?
Do you believe that? I actually was 2.5 years
Two
old.
and a half.
2.5. And I was on stage at 3, basically. I was kind of a novelty with my brothers because I was only 3, but my 3 brothers learned harmony in this wonderful program, which turned into Family Home Evening. It started out as Family Night back in the 50s. And my parents loved that program, and so we really encompassed it in our lives. We saw it was on Fridays, at that time, and every Friday night we would get together and practice and sing and counsel with each other and have prayer and do an activity. And it was like every Friday, but we made it fun. My parents made it fun for us. And it was through those family nights that we learned to sing. And so my father loved music and he had a great voice. And my mother played organ and saxophone. So we learned instruments through Family Home Evening, or Family Night. But there were some people in our ward that saw us singing in our ward and said, "Would you like to come in to our?" It was a kind of a convention in Salt Lake and sing for us, and he said, "We'd be glad to pay you for it." So that was our first paid gig when I was 3. So, but the only problem is when I got on stage, people started throwing money at me. And all I remember was starting the song with my brothers and then looking at the coins coming all over the stage. So I stopped and put coins in my pockets. And the more I did it, the more people threw. And it was kind of a disaster, really, but it was funny. That was my first professional gig. It was 1957 at this organization. So it was really fun. Yeah.
It's I would love to hear more about, because obviously your family is so well known for being so close knit, and there's a bad reputation amongst child stars in the sense that it's sort of an abnormal, significant percentage of them turn out to have really tragic lives, many cases. But for your
Yeah.
family, you were completely different. And I would love if you could tell us what 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 caused that, and what enabled you, like what role did this family night that you were having maybe have on grounding you and strengthening you to kind of experience all of the crazy stuff that you experienced, but to get through it and it not kind of corrupt you in a way.
What you just said, those two words, grounding and strengthening, I think those are very, very choice words to use because that's exactly what family night did for our family. Um, every night, every Friday night, we would get together, and as we were praying and singing and doing activities together, there was also a part of that family home evening or family night that my father called the family council time, and where he would take situations in life. And he said at a very early age, even before all the show business stuff came into our lives, he said, "Now I'm gonna I'm gonna role play with you guys things that are going to happen in your lives, not if, but when they happen. And I want you to be prepared, and I want you to be ready in life. I don't want you to just hit the world without training, because he says I'm responsible to the Lord for you." And oh, it was great because we took family home evening very serious. I know there's a lot. It's easy sometimes when you're busy in life, and you kind of just do that family home meeting. Oh, let's do it and get it over with, or let's just, and it becomes mundane or boring. But we took it really serious, and I have to tell you, I think it was because of that's what made us ground, that gave us that grounding, and that we needed to hit the world with, because we role played so many situations, and I tell you, they all came about, but we were ready for it. And as we hit the late 60s and early 70s, and it became a whirlwind in our lives, where we had people telling us here and there, do this and do that and doing that. We stayed together as a family, and um, the those who saw my musical in 2020 will notice that there was a theme. Is we Throughout the musical was family first, excuse me, faith first, family second, and career third, always in that order. And so from a very young age, my parents would always remember that in that when you make decisions, faith first, and then family, and then career. And so that really helped out, because later on, when we were called into the headquarters of the church, uh, President Lee at the time he was yeah, uh, heading the meeting with us, and they called our family on an official mission for the church. And his counsel was, always remember, you always have two choices in life. Always choose the one that will bring you closest to the celestial kingdom, whether it be the friends you keep, the places you go, the things you read or watch, or even the thoughts that you think, because they all have an impact on you. And so that had a really impact when President Lee said that you guys at this time in your life are being watched by many. This is the time when the Plan album came out. Is when we had the Plan album, which is a rock opera musical, and stealth messages about the plan of life. And we did that with all the songs, and where if you look at the Plan album and all the songs, it talks about the plan of life and through music. And so we were called on a family world mission by the church, uh, and that gave us strength. And but when it comes to child stars, we were still young. We had just come back up, or we just came off the '60s, being in TV for all those years. Walt Disney discovered us when I was 6, and then Andy Williams. But the thing is, what affected, I believe, us versus what happens to a lot of child stars is that it's so empty. You you people who seek fame and fortune, uh, can really mess you up, especially as a kid. But I remember even when we were on the Andy Williams show, my parents said, now, we're blessed to be on television, not to get fame or fortune, but we have the opportunity to lift families and to be examples for the church. So because of that message and strong message from them, and I think that's what really kept us sane through the 60s as when we were kids, as child stars. And I remember one time when we got the star in Hollywood, I mean, my father and mother were always teaching with through things or examples or object lessons or whatever it was. And and after we got the star on Hollywood, father says, "Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, now don't forget your chores, Jay, and don't forget Wayne." They always brought it back to reality, saying, this is we're here, we're being blessed right now with notoriety, but why do you think the Lord blessed us? Because we have the chance to share the gospel and to show families that it's fun to be together, that you can work together. And when we went through all of our hard times in the 80s, where we lost all of our money, I saw we're a family uh, pulled together and had each other's backs. And what would have broken most families, you lose all that kind of money, and it's devastating, and it devastated our family. But thank goodness for the gospel that it kept us together. It kept us sane. It kept us thinking clearly. We relied on our Father in heaven to help us, and we're blessed because, if you want to call it grounding, which I love that word, it was that family home evening, sitting as a kid, and you're so tender as a kid, and having your parents being so concerned about you, and and wanting to teach. I think that's why so many young kids are getting messed up, because people forget how important the church programs really are. They're all designed. Everything in the church is designed to help you live the gospel, which is a gospel of peace. And and uh, so everything in the church is designed for help you fulfill your covenants and to live the gospel and to have peace and to be protected and to be happy. You know, the gospel is such a wonderful thing. It's a great way of life. In fact, one of my favorite hymns is from the Tabernacle Choir, where it's called the Gospel of Peace. I change it sometimes to the lifestyle of peace. And it really is. You think about everything in the church that we try to do, or the church tries to do for us as members, is important. And I wondered one time, I for all of us who are really uh, dedicated and want to change and overcome and improve our lives, and you know, it's hard sometimes. The gospel isn't easy. It's not meant to be easy, but it's meant to be. Um, well, let me put it this way. Okay, I had a friend who was a bishop, and before he became a bishop, he was shocked that they called him to be a bishop. And then so I went to check on him in the next week to see if he was okay, because he seemed overwhelmed. And his head on the desk, and I go in his office, and he looks up and goes, "Jay, come on in." And then, I said, "Are you okay? You look really tired." And he says, "Oh, let me tell you." Let me tell you. He says, "There's the Bible, I think, missed a couple words in translation." And I says, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, it says, 'Come unto me who are heavily laden, burdened, and I will give you rest.' Well, he said it should read, 'Come unto me who are heavily burdened, and I will give you the rest.'" And then he said, "If you look at it," he says, "the greatest scripture I can think about is, 'Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.'" He says there's three things there. The kingdom of God is the church. His righteousness is the gospel, of course. And all these things are the things that we promised when we were baptized in Mosiah. He says that's why the church programs are so important. That's why the church ministers the gospel, because they want you to get involved. They want you to uh, live it, not just to be doers of the word and not hearers only is so important. And that's how we become doers: is get involved. A lot of people go to church and they go, no one's came up to me and said anything, and I feel lonely, or someone said something that was offensive, or well, gosh, these are human beings. We're all trying. We all make mistakes. And so the greatest thing I learned as a young person about about people who are offended or feel lonely or whatever, it's because my mother said it great. She says people who fall out of the church is the same reason people fall out of bed. They're not in far enough. You got to get in, and the best way. And so the best way to get involved is to just ask your bishop. What can I do? What can I do to be involved? That's all. Just be involved. And so my parents loved that. My parents always never told us to go to church. They said they took us to church. You see what I'm saying? They never. They walked the line. They not walked the line. They talked the talk, I should say. They didn't just walk. They didn't just talk the talk. They walked the walk. That's what I'm trying to say. And my parents were great examples of that. What really solidified it for me when I was a teenager is when I put two and two together. And that's when I saw the name of the church. It says the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Well, to me, there are two ofs in that title. There's the Church of Jesus Christ, which is perfect, of the second of Latter-day Saints, who we are. And that's how Christ perfects us, because that's where perfection meets imperfection. And we're there to become, he says, come be perfected in me and come learn of me and follow me. And we're all followers and we all make mistakes and we goof up. But that's why the atonement is so powerful, and that's why the gospel is so beautiful and the priest is so wonderful. And I think if we can and the gospel is really simple. I mean, I know it's hard sometimes when you're struggling, and it's only really, really hard was when you're struggling with the world. And if you haven't learned to push back the world, it becomes hard. But if you push back the world and you make decisions and say, I will do this, I won't do that, the gospel becomes easier and easier and easier. Now, it keeps you busy, like my bishop friend is, and it keeps you going and it keeps you active, but it keeps you keep developing and you keep growing and learning. And my parents always loved, the word opposition, because it meant opportunities to overcome. And my parents were always positive. They always said, if there's no solution, there's no problem. They always had a positive affirmation about something. And they were great examples for me, but they were great examples to many people. And that's why I think they put my mother in the book with the saints. She's in that book, and rightly so. Rightly so.
Well, that's a good segue into the next question, which I want to ask, which takes a turn slightly from what we've just been talking about. But I hope you'll indulge me in that you've been able to, across your career, meet so many almost mythical figures to me, people that I look up to and have posters around my room and almost think, well, these people actually real? But you met them, and I would love to hear some of your favorite experiences meeting. And I say this is a nice segue because your mother plays an important role in some of the meetings with some of these amazing people. For example, Elvis Presley and our late Queen Elizabeth II. I would love if you could share some of your favorite moments meeting these legendary, mythical figures.
Well, my parents, had an impact on a lot of people, like Glenn Campbell, for instance, and a lot of people, they just fall in love with my parents, because we are on the Andy Williams show. they were always there when all these guests would come and go and meet my parents and became friends. But my mother, uh, I think, was probably the greatest missionary I've ever seen in my life. She was not afraid of anything or anyone. And I asked her one time, and I said, "How do you do this? How do you just enjoy it? And you're always talking about the gospel, but not in a preachy way, which I don't like. In a way of love, an example." And she says, "Well, have you ever seen a great movie that you love?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, "Well," she said, "what do you do when you um, see that movie?" I says, "Well, I want to share it and talk about it with my friends." And she says, "Bingo." She said, "How do you think I feel about the Book of Mormon?" I just love it. And it's a second witness to the Bible. It backs it up. It backs a second witness of Jesus Christ and who he was and what he did and does. And she says, "Why wouldn't I want to share that with my friends who I love?" And I had, wow, that's a way to think about it. So many people are so afraid. Oh, I might lose a friend or ruffle a feather. If I bring up the gospel, it might offend that person. She was always talking about it, and people loved her for it. One of those people loved her was Elvis Presley. When we were in 1971, I think it was, we were performing with Nancy Sinatra at the International Hotel in Las Vegas, and it was being changed over to the Hilton. And so it was then called the International, and Elvis Presley was coming in, starting his Viva Las Vegas comeback. And so uh, we were performing, and we had noticed a lot of times up in the lighting booth there was Elvis Presley watching us because he had a penthouse on top of the hotel. And he would come down because, number one, Jimmy, our youngest brother, was doing this little tribute to Elvis Presley, and he'd come out, "You're looking for trouble? You came to the right place." And he'd act like Elvis, and he'd put on an Elvis kind of a suit, and he said, "I got a woman way over there." And he would be like, he's known, and I believe it's in the Guinness, whatever it is called, that he's the first Elvis impersonator, because Elvis would come down and just watch him and laugh all the time. And then he'd watch us, the brothers, perform. And so he invited us up to his suite, up his penthouse on our last night, we before he opened up with Nancy Sinatra. And so we all go up there to party, and I was really nervous because, wow, this is Elvis Presley. And he opened up the door, I'll never forget, with his big smile on his face, and he looked at each one of us. There were like a whole bunch of us. He says, "Brothers, you even smile alike. Come on in." He was so funny. He acted like a big brother, and he just talked to us like a brother, and he had a twin brother who died, and he loved his mother. We played pinball games. We had a great night. But he and mother and my father really connected. And of course, we stayed in touch with Elvis. He had a great impact on us. Those who followed the Osmonds career, you'll notice we changed in Elvis Presley suits or jumpsuits because of Elvis. He
Oh,
tried
right.
to help us. Yeah, he tried to, and he had us change the colors. And we had individual colors, and the Ninja Turtles followed that. By the way, the Ninja Turtle, it was really funny because the Bill Ballou, who was Elvis's clothes designer, was instructed by Elvis on what to do for us, and then Bill Ballou's friend, who was the designer of Ninja Turtles, he said, "I like what you did with the Osmonds on. I'm going to change," because Ninja Turtles started out as all green, and then notice they all got different colors, purple, orange. They did that because of us. Like
Wow.
Donatello got purple, and Michelangelo got orange or whatever. But it was really funny. Oh, there's some inside stories that are so fun. But the one I love about it is that when we moved over to Caesar's Palace Hotel that next year, Elvis kept in touch with us, and he called after his show once in a while to call over to talk to Mother, because they made a real connection about the Bible. Elvis Presley loved the Bible. And it eventually started talking about the Book of Mormon with Mother. And he would call over to Caesar's palace to talk to Father if it was okay to talk to Mother. He was very respectful. And Mother would have this wonderful conversation, uh, several. And I remember her would just talk about, life, and she would talk to him like a mother would. And it was really interesting. One of the things I regret so much is because we never took a picture, because we respected the colonel who didn't want us to take pictures or become like, these crazy fans around Elvis. He had so much of that. He said that Elvis really respected us and loved us as a family. So we honored that. We didn't take any pictures, but that was my one regret, but uh, and so that, and then of course my mother, when we met the Queen, we did a royal gala in 1972. I think the first one was, I can't remember now, but early 70s. We did it with Rowan Martin, Liza Minnelli, and there's James Bond. Can't remember his name. Anyway, uh, so afterwards we would line up backstage, and they would instruct us on how to meet the Queen, right? So
Yeah.
we don't raise your hand unless she raises hers, and don't talk to her unless she says something to you. Anyway, she comes down the line, and we have a great. She meets us all, and she's really nice. And Prince, I think, is Philip. I believe it was Prince Philip.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and he was nice, and some nice people they brought. Well, when they get to the end of the line, there's Father and Mother, and well, the Mother and the Queen just hit it off. They start talking about family and things, and Father and Prince Philip are talking about Wyoming and the hunting and all that stuff. Well, normally just they come down the line and then they leave, right? Well, there's now 5-10 minutes going on, and now 15 minutes, now 20. I think it was the Prime Minister or something. He was like really mad. He was really mad because we have to go. He kept pushing, the royalty to come on. We've got to go. We got to. Just a minute, she said to the Queen. It was really funny. Great memory though, but it was really interesting. And my mother, she said, "You know what?" She says, "I wasn't going to do this because I know it's not kosher to do this, but I really feel strongly about something." And Her Majesty says, "Well, what is it?" She says, "I would love to give you something special from our family. Is that okay?" She said, "Oh, yes." She says, "It's a book." She says, "Well, can you part with it?" And she says, "Oh yeah, I can part with it." The night before we did the gala, my mother felt inspired to take the Book of Mormon and do some underlining in it. She marked. I noticed that night before she was just underlining and underlining, and she gave her this book, the Book of Mormon. And she says, "I will treasure that." She said, the Queen. So it said, and my mother says, "Please do. It means so much to us." And so when they left, this Prime Minister guy, anyway, he came up to Mother and Father and said, I believe it was the Prime Minister, I think it was, said, "You really did something wrong here tonight. You asked the Queen to be." He says, "How dare you?" He told her off, and Father and Mother were in shock a little bit, and then he walked off in a huff. And Mother didn't feel bad about it. She says, "No, I don't feel bad," but she felt a little uncomfortable that maybe she did something wrong out of step, because they're very good people. And she went home, and she felt inspired to open up Doctrine and Covenants section 1, where the gospel would be preached before kings and rulers by the weak and the simple. And she went, "Oh, you know, that's my mother. She fulfilled prophecy right there." And that's so. When you read about her in the Saints book, it's everything is so true about my sweet mother, and a great father. We had a steadfast and immovable father.
It's amazing. There's so much to learn from her. I've got new Saints book up there, but I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
So I'm looking forward to hearing about her more in that.
uh,
But amazing the bravery and courage. I'd like to think it's one of those things where I'd like to think I would do that, but when it comes down to it, in the heat of the moment, would I? And it's so inspiring to hear of your mother's experience. And well, sticking with the topic of the UK and the Queen, it's partly why I really wanted to speak to you today, Jay, is we're coming close to our 100th episode on the podcast, and I was reflecting and saying this is a big moment, and I would love to talk about things for a few of the episodes before and after 100 that are passionate to me, and that's about the history of the church in the British Isles, because we have such a rich history, and
it's
you and
beautiful.
your family have, you're embedded into our cultural musical history in the UK, but also really into the church history in the UK. The time when Osmond mania was happening was such a significant time of growth for us in the UK, and gave Latter-day Saints in the UK confidence where for years there was such a negative perception of the church in this part of the world for some reason. And I'd just love to hear from you, what if you could share any insights of what the media response in the UK was to you at the time when you were big. And I mean, a specific example of Heathrow Airport in the 70s, what happened there. There's thousands of screaming fans.
I'll never forget that moment. We didn't know what to expect. We landed. We were told that there were a lot of people. We didn't know there were that many thousands of people there, but there were a lot of people. So beware. So be ready. And so when we landed and we opened up, we heard this roar, and I, it was the most humbling. It was like it was just totally opposite of how, hey, look at me, look at what I did. People would, look at this. Like we all looked at each other and we go, can you believe this? What a responsibility. We were so grateful and blessed. We felt so, it was like unbelievable, but look who the Lord has put us in charge of, not in charge of, but look at the Lord has opened up an opportunity to teach now and to help and to lift and inspire if we can. So, boy, we're on our toes. And we all felt this pressure. It wasn't, it was none of us, and I'm so grateful that none of us had this ego of, wow, did you see that? Or, and the girls screaming and the news articles and the interviews. We just knew that there was negativity with the church. And it was our job. We felt that, that it was our job to see if we can counter some of that, and to give maybe do our small part in giving the church some positivity within the public eye and the media. And so we did a lot of firesides, we did a lot of interviews, and and I think people are only, the reason why they're negative or is because of fear and ignorance. And when the more people understand who we were and what we are all about, the less they fear and the less they judge. And I think the we felt a responsibility to get the message of the gospel and the church out as much as we could at that time in our lives, and we felt that we had that responsibility. It's kind of like uh, how maybe a mission president and his wife feel when they go out there. They feel that pressure that
Mm.
you've got these missionaries you can hear, and it's your job to help train and to teach and to inspire and to lift. And we all felt uh, that kind of responsibility. Uh, and so I think it made us grow. It helped us to deepen our testimonies and help us to stretch. But it was also wonderful. We made so many friends and fans and out there that many are so with us today. And if it wasn't, and it's part of the musical that I wrote. There's a person who plays. Her name is Wendy, and she plays this wonderful fan who watches us from that time of Heathrow all the way through. and how that friendship begins to develop, and not just with her and us, but with her friends, and that ripple effect. And I think members of the church don't realize that every person who is LDS, and you don't have to be in show business or public figure or anything, but anybody who is a Latter-day Saint is being watched, and they are respected deep down inside. You're respected for what we believe, but people want to test us. They want to push us a little bit. They want to see if what we're made of. They want to kind of push the envelope with us sometimes. And that's our opportunities to teach and say no if we have to say no, and do it nicely, and avoid situations where we know we could be in trouble, or things that we were taught in family home. And all these kinds of things will happen to every Latter-day Saint, because that's part of the refining process when you become a member of the church, is to take the gospel and take it out and practice it and learn it and teach it, live it. That's the main thing. Live it. So when you live it, it's not hard. It's when you're fighting the world and you're struggling. We all struggle with things and weaknesses. That's where wonderful prayer comes in. But the Lord knows that. He knows that we're weak, but that's why He's always there for us. We just need to turn to the Lord. And we've got these great tools now with the church and the great power that's with us and as members. And as we go through life and struggle and overcome and are challenged or feel the peer pressures, and this is all these opportunities to develop ourselves and really to integrate and incorporate and internalize the gospel. That's what faith is. When you have faith, it's a decision. Faith is not just a belief or, well, I believe this. Faith is a decision that you make when you become a member of the church, that you're going to try, do your very best to become more like the Savior. And that doesn't mean that means we're always going to be perfect, or we're always make mistakes. But a great authority, general authority, once said to us, he said that the Spirit of the Lord will always be with you if you're willing to make changes in your life. And so I've always thought that. And I thought, if we're having struggles, look at yourself. What are some things I need to change to maybe be more humble or grateful? And the Lord will tell you what you need to do. You just need to do them.
And your family really brought the Spirit to the UK. I actually found some statistics of membership figures in the UK, and it's interesting, partly because of emigration, but also attrition and the persecution that from newspapers and the bad press in the UK. But from 1840 to 1960, the church membership in the UK had plateaued at 6,000. It hadn't really grown at all. And then at the end of 1970, so the 60s to the 70s, there was a bit of growth where it went to 10,000. But in the 20 years from 1970 to 1989, the church grew from about 10,000 to over 150,000 members. Just insane in that 10 years. And from 1970 to 1980, it went from 10,000 to 90,000. And then in the following decade, that's when it went to 90 to 150,000.
Wow,
and obviously an amazing growth. But we do recognize in the church the role that the Spirit that your family brought to the UK, and the excitement was a big part of that. And so we're really proud of that in our history. And one aspect of that was these firesides that you mentioned. And I heard some wonderful accounts from Hyde Park fireside. Hyde Park, for those, it's in London, and it's the main stake centre in London. And I was reading in some of our church history documents that there was a particular fireside where there were thousands of people filling up the stake centre, and each of your family members just kind of got up and stood up and shared their testimony. And there were members who are still active today saying that we weren't converted like to the Osmond family. We weren't converted because they're members of the church we're going to join, but rather that your family introduced to them what it was like to feel the Spirit, and they felt the
Oh,
Spirit,
oh,
and
that's my day.
they understood what personal revelation was, and they understood what a loving God was. And I think that's really important to note. But I mean, could you share any memories you have or insights about the atmosphere and spirit of those firesides?
Oh, they were my favorite. They were more fun, a lot more fun and enjoyable than doing shows, because we would get a chance to shake hands and talk to people and afterwards. And sometimes we weren't always that able to do it, but we at least we got a chance to talk, and we'd listen to some stories and meet people, because that's where the real joy of it was to meet people and to. But we were rushed in and out. But when we got to do those firesides, it was a more relaxed feeling, and and it was like you said, the spirit was so strong, and we and a lot of people didn't know what the spirit was, and how to enjoy it and how to listen, and to be at peace with the spirit. But through those firesides, we were able to do some teaching about that. What my concern is now, and after all those years, I just hope that those people who have, um, and I don't like this word less active, become less active or fallen away. I just hope they can come back and enjoy the blessings of the church and the gospel in their lives. Um, but Mike, I just, that was a wonderful time in my life. It was a great mission for our family. It was a family mission, but it was one that this brings me such joy, because I still have saved letters and letters that have boxes of fan mail where people would write, "Thank you for introducing the church to me." It was just kind of like, I feel like, I feel like it's like my mission, and but it was just a wonderful experience, and and did not overlook or the power of example that we all have on each other. My nephew has a great story, who did served a mission uh, in England. Is my nephew, and he was trying so hard to be a good missionary, but well, he was in a rough area, and he came home with zero baptisms, and he was so depressed. And I remember him saying, and he says, "Oh, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I tried so hard to teach and to preach, and then I didn't get anybody to be baptized." And then all of a sudden, after he was home for about 6 months, he started getting a letter from. He taught the teachers. He was the teachers. He taught the teachers, and he was from one by one. I think there were 16 letters that he received from 16 kids. Each one says, "Thank you for getting me on a mission." And every one of them thanked him for that. He was the reason that motivated them to go on a mission. So just think of the missionary work he did through those young men. We never know what we're going to say or do to help someone find the gospel or to be baptized. Most importantly, I think for members now is to be aware of helping people retain their membership, and to help them if they're inactive or less active, or have got problems about the church. It's usually something they've been offended. It's not usually about the gospel. So that's why the gospel is so important. We go reach out to everybody and bring them back. And I think that's the thing that I'm more aware of now these days, is how do I activate people and to help them to remember those feelings and those covenants they make and those kinds of things.
Regarding missionary work, I'd be interested to know. You mentioned this when you were talking about the plan earlier on, and it's kind of introducing missionary themes and gospel themes into songs. And I wonder, for many of the songs, take "Love Me for a Reason." My wife loves, well, I do as well, but she loves some of the lyrics in there that are completely antithetical to the kind of love songs and romance songs that you hear today.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how intentional was the writing of those songs in terms of the example that it set and the principles that it taught. Was this just a natural reflection of the lives that you lived, that, yeah, we're going to write the song? Or was it very much missionary focused?
Very missionary focus. It was. We wanted to write a rock album, rock opera album with our music that we wrote about what we believed, because we had so many people write in about, what do you believe and why are you so happy? Why are you smiling all the time? So we thought it would be not only doing firesides, but write an album, do an album that really can do it, present it in a stealth way. So like Let Me In it really means,
Mm.
it's a love song, but it also means about the Savior, about forgiveness, and about let me in your arms again. Yeah. So every song in the plan is designed to teach the gospel in a principle, some way about the plan of life. That's what it was designed for.
My daughter love it. My daughter's 3 months old, and I always sing "Let Me In" to her. We sing that. We love listening to the Osmonds in the car.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm always singing Osmonds to my daughter, hoping that I'll be indoctrinating her early on and that she'll carry it on.
Well, thank you for that. Besides the Plan album, I think my favorite albums were, besides Crazy Horses, which is my favorite one,
Of course.
but but our Christmas albums, and
Oh yes.
such happy, because it's about talking about Christ, and talking about Christmas. Boy, I just love Christmas. I could have it every day of the year. But the Christmas albums and the Christmas shows that we did were always my favorite.
Well, I actually really like, we as a family, we really enjoy and listen to frequently the "Can't Get There Without You"
Oh,
album.
thank you.
Um, and obviously, with it being a later album, it's probably um, not as Osmond iconic as those key Osmond Mania albums, but we really love the songs in that. There's so many wonderful songs in there. But
Well,
of course, Crazy Horses. Again, with the Osmonds being one of my first concerts, I always have this memory of you with this piano guitar thing with pyrotechnics coming out of it, with singing Crazy Horses. I loved it.
well, that interesting. You said that Can't Get There Without You album was the last album that we did as a family, and Marie's on it as well, and Jimmy, and all the brothers. All the brothers are on it, and it was our last album. I have 1,000 CDs left, and I held off to these thousands because we're going to do a get together coming up, and I'm going to make those open for anybody who wants one of those. And but that was our last album. I have a special memory attached to that one. But it's been a long journey, but it's been a wonderful journey. I'm now in Florida, and I'm doing some shows here, and I'm enjoying life, and with my beautiful wife Karen, and we're putting some fun things together. The musical is coming to America now, and I think it's coming back to the UK. Yeah, I hope so. So, but that I people who see the musical will know that. And my goal was to have. I said, when I wrote the musical, I said, what do I want people to say when they come out? And I want them to feel uplifted, and to love my family and respect my family, and just to know all the things that we went through, how hard it was, but through those hard times made us really close. And I wanted to know how wonderful parents we had that were the glue for the whole thing. And so, anyway, I hope it comes back. I hope you get a chance to see it, Ben.
Oh, definitely. And in the musical, you it's very honest about the ups and downs of your
Yes,
family.
yes.
I'd love to hear, was there a specific verse or something from scripture that carried you through those hard times in your family?
You bet. There are several stealth little sayings that my parents would give us, like "Do what is right, let the consequences follow," uh, or "Smile. We're going to laugh at this someday, so let's laugh now." I mean, I put a lot of those little, um, really affirmations, or little things that my parents would say to us to keep us going, and remember who you are, and little quotes from them. I put them all through. Uh, um, oh, there's so many that I put in there that kind of like would help people know my parents and remind us about life, and that we're on this earth together to help each other and the purpose of life. But all through the story, as I mentioned, those three things: faith first, family second, career third, they're all intertwined as well. But I take people on a roller coaster through this thing, Ben, and I start up to here and go down here and up there, and they ride this ride with us. Wasn't all fun and games, but by the end, it was so heartwarming to see what people said about it, and how they said, "Oh, I felt so close afterwards to your family, and thank you for bringing me back when as a teenager, or even the younger ones that saw the got into the music, and it was just a wonderful experience for me to put that together, and I hope it continues in the UK and next year or year after. But um, I hope I hope it really has effect on people in a positive way, or to help people remember our family in the way I'd love them to remember.
Hmm. I would recommend it if it's touring in America soon. Everyone listening, you must go and see it. It's amazing. I've seen a lot of clips, and I was at a graduation, a college thing, the day that it premiered, and I remember being so devastated that I
Oh,
couldn't go and watch it.
darn it!
But but Jay, as a kind of wrap up question, I mean, such an illustrious career. How do you wrap up an interview with someone like yourself? And I was just thinking, after everything that you have gone through and the crazy experiences that you've had and all of that, what does the gospel mean to you now?
Great question. The gospel to me is everything. It's a gospel of peace. It's a gospel of direction. It gives you purpose in life. It gives you joy. It explains how to overcome things. It gives you the strength that you need. You have the tools that are given uh, to in life to help you through life. It helps you understand that you're not alone, that God loves you, that you are His child, that you have been blessed with this wonderful lifestyle, and to embark on a wonderful journey. And all you need to do is just take one step at a time. The Lord's right there with you when you fall down. He helps you to pick up. Just know that the Lord understands, and He's there, and helps you understand that there's a great atonement in life, that when things are you're in pain in any way, that you can put things on the Lord, and He helps you through. He just helps you through. And I don't honestly know, Ben, how people get through life without the gospel. How do they do it? How can you think so shallow about this and that, and when life's over, it's over? No, it goes on. And the things that we're doing now are preparing ourselves for the next life. How we act with people, what we do, with how we handle our thoughts, our words, our actions, um, how we treat each other, I think is so critical. And the gospel teaches us how to deal with people when we're angry, when we're upset, or we're depressed, or when we're, the gospel's there. It's always there to teach you and to help you. So the gospel is everything to me, Ben, because without it, I don't know what the heck I'd be doing. But I just know that it's given me a lot of peace. It's given me a lot of happiness, joy, serving. You get out of yourself when you live the gospel. The Lord teaches you to look at others, and I remember one time my father was we were in a meeting, and we were talking about when you go into a room, you know how there's certain people that you walk into a room and you open the door and it's like a spotlight shot. Whoa, look at me, everybody, look at, you know, what can I do to be impressive or whatever. Or you can look at it this way. You can come into a room and say, look at you. Oh, hey, there you are. How are you? And the gospel changes you to become that person, that second way. It takes selfishness right out of you. You know, you learn to think how others might feel if this happens or whatever. It just teaches you to get out of yourself. And when you get out of yourself, you become selfless and not selfish. And I just love that. And I don't know, I could go on and on, but it's just wonderful. It's just a great way to live.
Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you for spending some time with me today. It's just been the best. I've absolutely loved it. And
Me too. Thank you, man. You are so easy to talk to. I can see you are really good at your job, man.
oh, thank you. That means a lot. Well, I mean, you're writing a book at the moment. You've got the
Yes.
musical. You're organizing a new band where you are. You have the
Put out
Osmond
some new
Connection.
songs too. I wrote some songs with my wife, and so
Oh,
exciting.
brilliant. Is there a central place that people can keep up to date with all of the things that you're doing?
Yes, it's called Osmond Connection, and it's on Facebook. It's J Osmond Osmond Connection. We also have this thing called Osmond Fit, where is on Facebook, where we talk about mind, body, and spirit, and how which was, I think, is the soul, where you get your think what things that we think about and help you mentally, for people especially with mental challenges and depression and all these anxiety. And then there's the physical side. We talk about getting healthy, and we talk about the spiritual side. Your spirit needs spiritual food just as bad as your body needs it. And so we talk about that in Osmond Fit. But Osmond Connection, there are many of the fans that have stayed with us can go to that website or to Facebook, excuse me, and be a part of that. We're getting get-togethers through that. So I encourage, if those who really want to keep up with what's going on in our lives, Osmond Connection, J Osmond Facebook is I would love to invite you to do that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for spending some time with me today, Jay, and coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I sure enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thanks for watching For All the Saints. This show needs your help to grow. Please like the video, comment your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone you think would enjoy it. Thank you.